Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today what we're going to highlight is how you solo queue no-fill trios as Loba. What I have here are 7 rounds where we had some big clutches and of course a win. Didn't really go above 7, just really kept it as these. Some of them I really kind of lost and struggled with, and some of them I really succeeded with. And we're going to highlight where we succeeded and some of them what I could do differently, and let's just get into it. This is going to be full of helpful tips, how you engage, how you disengage, how you can use your abilities to your strengths and weaknesses, and when you're with a squad, you'll only play even better. So let's get into it. For the start here, some gameplay will actually have audio in the background, some won't. This one happened to be when I was in a meeting and I was actually in the background because it wasn't necessarily having to speak during the meeting and I can just solo queue. So what I did is I heard a third party immediately and I rushed towards it after I dropped hot. The biggest thing is always isolating opponents. You hear this all the time. So how do you isolate them? Always retreating and backing up and making sure you can get a solid 1v1. I threw down the ultimate ability there just to make sure that I have it as a potential loot later. So I did knock 2 here. I know they were pretty into it because where I did drop, I made sure to rotate as quickly as possible for when I heard this gunfire. So just make sure you loot up and loot quickly. Even if your stuff isn't ideal, you'll notice that I still have white armor. You'll still push forward. This team was definitely still in shambles, and I didn't necessarily need to wide peek, so that could have been my mistake if they happen to land their shots. They're definitely panicking, and so keeping constant pressure is definitely a good thing. A big mistake the Valkyrie does here, which all Valkyries should never do, is fly into the air. Whenever you're in a 1v1, don't ever fly into the air. You're just going to be a free shot. And for some reason, no matter what level, I even see high level players make this mistake often, and just don't do it. I know that you want to get those rockets and use your tactical ability, just don't make this mistake. So I did realize that I only knocked 2 from the other group, so this is only potentially 5 kills. I go look for this other individual to make sure they do not res. The downside of this, I do finish this target off. Biggest thing of why I'm finishing targets is so I know that I have a swap nearby if needed, but also I want to ensure that this stays a 1v2 scenario. So I do run up here. I do have that broken armor on the ground there as a resource. I do a lot of damage here to the Gibraltar. I do not see the other third, so I back up immediately. He closes the door on me, and I back up in battery. So what I'm doing when I'm doing this is I'm hoping that they'll go for the res, which they end up actually doing. So in this moment, I hear a res, and I wide swing immediately, and I hear the res go off. And the reason once I hear the res go off is I know I have the damage. I wide peek back as I'm switching weapons to ensure I do not get shot, and that goes for the nice little cleanup there for 6 kills right off the bat. So this is a very clean third party, but also isolating and really throwing off the team because they don't know that you're a solo. And if they don't know that you're a solo, then you can really get the jump on opponents and how you isolate enemies out. The downside of what could occur here is that they multiple teams decide to focus fire you, then you have to back out and retreat. I do happen to snag a few more kills, so let's segue to that. Let's see what those kills were. So I just rotated. Usually when I'm playing solo, I'm always running around. I do not stop. The reason for that is that I'm stopping, then I have the potential of a team running up on me. And I want teams to always think that that I have a full squad with me. So I managed to catch this poor soul out of positioning here. They had no idea that I was actually up here, and I go for the finish, so I have the swap there. I happen to find gold armor during my rotation in, and I do manage to see another opponent. They have a charge rifle, but they miss a lot of their shots. I just go in here to kind of clean up whatever I need just in case of batteries. Batteries always take priority. This poor person decides to try to leave. I wonder if I manage to get him out of the air. That'd be amazing, but I don't think I do, and they run and get out of dodge. So I just pretty much let them go for free, but because we made a lot of noise, I need to watch out and look at my surroundings and be sure I don't get caught out. Luckily, I've already looted the box for resources, so I know that even if I back up, that the Valkyrie is not going to go for the res. So the biggest thing whenever you're solo is, I know it seems like you're griefing down targets, but you need those armor swaps, and you need to ensure that when a res goes off, that res isn't counter pressure onto you. So let's skip because I know there's one more kill that I do get, and then let's highlight whenever I do make a mistake and I do ultimately go down. So what we do here is we catch the team out of position. This was a Valkyrie that did fly away, so I'm putting a lot of pressure on this team just because I want to ensure that I'm maintaining the advantage here. So unfortunately, the Revenant does go down immediately. They didn't really have many resources. They wide swung a little too hard on me, and that really keeps that 1v3 or that pressure. Even though I'm by myself, having that additional pressure. So probably the Valkyrie already ran, and unfortunately, let's take a look whenever I ultimately lost. So this Valkyrie was definitely a huge pain, always running away, and I did get into the mix of it in the center. Remember, the idea is to always keep rotating and always staying into the thick of it. Staying outside a zone isn't necessarily bad, especially if you're doing solos, because at least you might be able to catch somebody out, but know what your resources look like so you're able to do so. I always found rotating a bit late in, I was able to catch more teams out rather than being in the center, and having teams that were already hunkered down in a faux building was a lot harder for me to breach as a solo, because every time I ran up on a building, they knew I was already solo. I think this is where I finally went down. So this is not bad. This is 9 kills at 2,400 damage already. So some pretty solid damage. I kept rotating. And I do see the team here. My goal here was to ensure that I can knock this individual as fast as possible. Luckily, they made a mistake and they did drop, which helps with the isolation. I did wide swing knowing that the target was above and get the knock. So I need to secure this knock so they don't go for the res, but they do have a lot of pressure up above as well. So I'm trying to counteract that pressure. And unfortunately, I do get shot in the back. From a whole different team, by the way. This isn't even the same team because they're all shooting each other charge rifles. So I had the best play possible. The only thing I needed to do was watch my back a little more and just get a little bit more lucky. So let's talk about the next gameplay. So the biggest thing I always highlight whenever you're solo, when you're dropping, is you want to drop near the action, but near a close POI. So the right here happens to always have like a charge rifle, long range. Usually there's a sentinel here, and you can usually find some armor, some pretty good loot. So it gives me the ability to loot up, grab some stuff, and I decide to actually cheese pretty hard here with the charge rifle. Use that as my strength instead of my weakness, and I decide to pretty much go in on this as fast as possible. Remember, know where all the loot is, so I'm very fast and efficient. I know where each of the loot is, and with Loba, at least you can highlight even faster what the loot is. I don't pick up the bow check there because I already have my single tap weapon, which is a charge rifle. I wanted to, I can definitely switch to the charge rifle instead, but be quick, know what your loadout is, and don't swap. Stick with what you got and don't run around constantly switching. So I find an R301 charge rifle, perfect loadout, very, very strong. And at this point, once I go for the bends, we'll skip forward a little bit, and I pretty much go all the way over for the fight. And I'm pretty much picking on teams here, trying to catch a team out, see if I get a knock to create an opening. And unfortunately just do a little bit of damage, but not enough to make a major play. But I finish up here with the loot, and Loba's really fast in getting that rotation. Drop your ultimate as soon as possible because it's going to help you get into the next fight. I realize I need to rebind a keybind, so I do that in the moment because I forgot to rebind it, and I decide to rotate onto this fight here. So I do know that there was 3 teams that are fighting here, and even though there's still 2 potential teams fighting, so I decide to roll up and try to at least get a knock. If I get a knock, then at least I know that I still have an advantage here on this fight. I hear them fighting over in the left side building, so I am pretty quick to making sure that I engage on this encounter. The luck that you have in terms of somebody being caught out is very, very high. And this happens with, you're going to see with the Ashport, and they have no idea that you're here because you are a variable that nobody accounted for. Because that was an insta, I know that potentially this is the only team left in here, but their shields are really, really bad and really low. I try to go for the cleanup with the charge rifle, but unfortunately I'm unable to do so. This Revenant, and this is the interesting part, is that even high tier players will just, if they think you're by yourself, they will just full send you and make a lot of mistakes. And they're using a lot of utility, and these rounds aren't necessarily, sometimes you get into easier rounds, sometimes you don't, but when good players make a mistake and just run at you, and I see this happen all the time, so that's a big advice for every single one of you who's watching this video. Just because you're good at the game, don't play and make mistakes and run into a solo and just get 1v3'd. I've had it embarrassingly happen to me because you're like, oh, there's just one person, I'm just gonna run in. Notice how each of them ran in one at a time, like absolute, you know, lack for a better word, I'm just going to say bots, and I'm sorry for anybody of these guys who actually watch my content, but I make this mistake too, so I'm calling myself out on it as well, that this does happen, okay? It's a mistake that we all make, and so watching this video, if you run up on even a solo and you isolate 1v1 right in the open, what is the first thing that is going to happen? This. So if you really highlight why this happens and why it's so easy to do, is I know one of them got cracked here. So if we know that one got cracked, I know that the next person is going to push up. The other person's healing. I see them on the upper left hand side healing already, so I know that they're out of the fight. Even if I didn't see them, I know 100% they're out of the fight. This Revenant for some reason decided to keep pushing here. So because they decided to keep pushing, that's what ultimately led to their downfall, because now I know once I knocked him, the Horizon definitely made a positive engagement by trying to push him, but instead she made the mistake of using her Q instead of getting out and going towards her teammate. She pushed right in, which was a really ballsy move, and I guarantee one of them called a crack, but you got to remember the time it takes to reload. So let's talk about when I made the mistake in this ultimate fight and when I got eliminated. I kept rotating, and it took me a really long time. I got some kills, but the downside is when teams play very, very patiently, especially towards the end zone, you just don't get lucky sometimes, and that's just the unfortunate part. Sometimes you get high kill games, you know, like you saw earlier, and sometimes you just will get unlucky. It's just a matter of time. In 7 rounds, you realistically would need to put around maybe 20 before you got a really good round. So what happened here is I was by myself, but I was trying to put pressure, and both the teams decided to pick on me. I was trying to put counter pressure so they didn't push, and for some reason the team down below knew this, and I try to dodge the nade and maybe take a shot from a distance. And what is the first thing that they do? Like I said, is that they full send you, and you're not going to win no matter how much damage you dish out. And maybe you can crack one, do 134 damage. Doesn't matter, because they're all going to full send you and you get eliminated. That's just the downside if you're playing solo. What could happen if you got a well-coordinated team? Let's go to the next talking point. Okay, so going forward, we'll have in-game noise. Technically, with the last clip, I could have had it as well. I'll probably remove the music. So you want to land near, not necessarily on the action, because sometimes you'll just get punched out, or if a team lands on you and they realize that you're isolated. Sometimes you get better loot just near the outskirts, so that's what I do. I grab my loadout, and I'm pretty quick on running over as fast as possible. So remember, long range and also close range weaponry is going to be ideal, and that's the first thing that you want to do, especially when getting in and out of a fight. So as soon as I loot up, we skip ahead. I loot up and I immediately run towards the action here. I pull up my rampage initially to try to snap between a few targets, try to do as much damage as possible. Also assess the lay of the land to see, one, how good their shot is, and then two, if what their armor type. So right now we got some blues, we got some white armors, mostly white armor, so not everyone got lucky. I happen to have a purple, so it's really lucky on my part, so it gives me confidence to be able to push in. I just don't want to become the center of attention here. Unfortunately, I kind of do, so I just decide to back up a little bit here, because everyone... It's weird. Once you start putting pressure on a team, they're going to be the first ones to kind of realize, like, hey, you're the one dishing out damage. So in the moment here, I put down that ultimate there to kind of switch and grab some ammo, whatever I could. And the reason I'm grabbing a wingman is just because the burst damage is really, really solid and consistent, especially since I have the rampage, which is my long-range weapon. So it's just a nice balance. That's all I'm looking for, is I also want to conserve ammo. One of the other ones you'll probably find where ammo can be a real big issue, especially when you're running other legends. So I cracked quite a few down here. I want to stay up on height until I know I have the full advantage on this fight, until I can find out how to isolate them. You're going to see a major mistake that I made on this fight, and there's definitely a few of them that I made. So I get the nade out, and I see one on the left. I knock him, and I decide to finally go in on this, because now I got a 2v1, and I see they're over there in the corner kind of cowering. This Wraith is landing her shots quite a bit more, but I got her cracked, but they're also swapping like crazy. And I should have accounted for the amount of times that they swapped, which is my ultimate downfall. The nade just wasn't far enough, and I don't know where the Wraith is, but I did knock that individual. The Wraith is present, but I whiffed one shot there. Unfortunately, there's another one, 2, 3, 4. We both whiff quite a bit, and so I decided to run back, and keep in mind that the Wraith is also really low, which is why she's not white peeking me, and why I mentioned keep track of your boxes, because this costed me pretty much. What I should have done, I should not have swapped to the white armor there. I have a battery, just as an FYI, and the Wraith unfortunately has purple now because she leveled up her armor. So I'm batting. If I had my red armor here, I promise you, I would have gotten this clutch. So I have to back up because that nade puts a lot of pressure, unfortunately. So there's 45, and I miss, and that is my ultimate downfall. Literally, if I had not switched to that white armor there, sometimes if you have a battery, just go for the bat, and if you're whiffing shots, sometimes most people on both ends will miss. So just a major tip, keep track of the boxes, and then two, make sure that if you have your batteries, not to necessarily swap armors. If it's a lesser armor, you can heal it up. Let's go to the next clip. So I mentioned when you drop hot, sometimes you may do it just if there's so many teams. I think there's probably like 4 or 5 teams located here, so I decided to see if I can get into the thick of it. And sometimes it works out in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't, depending on your loadout that you get. So the reason I'm highlighting this really quickly is that sometimes you'll drop hot, and you may not just get that opportunity that you're looking for. I did crack one, and I decide to swing down here just because I hear him. I catch him out. He is really low, and I go for the knock, but I'm going to retreat, and one catches me out of position, so I have to rotate back up. I immediately know that I can't stay engaged with this, but I know that they're also panicked. So I go for the shield cell, but I hear the res here in a second. There's the res, and unfortunately when a res is going off, I have no choice but to push. I'm hoping the other one just makes a mistake and doesn't engage me, but she does, and that's just the reality of it. I mean, the only thing I could have done is not wide swing as much, as once I got the knock, I needed to immediately leave, or just finish the knock and go for a rotation. So that's the only two things that I could have done there. Those are quick decision makings, like right there. That's where I hesitated and ran the wrong way. I should have went back up on the stairs instead of hesitating and pushing over to the left, and that's where I got the burst damage done on me. All right, let's segue to the next clip. I titled this one Staying in the Fight. Staying in the fight can really net you quite a bit, and sometimes if a team lands near you and it feels like they're playing pretty aggressive, there's a lot of teams here, and there's one that lands on the back and puts a lot of pressure. Sometimes the only thing you can do is just keep running and running until you can find yourself in a comfortable spot, which is what you're going to see a lot here, is that I just had to keep running because, one, my loadout wasn't ideal and I have an L-Star, but even then, I hear them. I hear 2 of them. See if we can hear their footsteps. Sometimes a little hard. Also, the audio that I have right now is a little turned down. But because I hear 2 of them, and I'm not confident that I'm able to spray them down pretty quick, so I decided to rotate to see if I can get a quick shot with the Sentinel to try to catch them out. And I decided to put the 4x8. Sometimes you're just going to whiff. It just happens, especially when you're just doing raw rounds and just seeing how you do. It doesn't always work out in your favor. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just kind of the reality of it. So we skip ahead. What happens here is I just get shredded and I decide to leave the fight. I can't stay if I know I'm getting shredded, and I should have landed the shots initially. And if I didn't, well, I just kind of got screwed over because I didn't land my shot. So ladies and gentlemen, just be sure to land your shots if you're going to engage. And if you realize you're not going to land them like I did there, you need to immediately get out of dodge because it's no longer worth the fight or the engagement. So they hit me. I'm literally going to be 1 HP here in a second, and then I'm going to Q out. I do have my ult, so I'm confident that I can heal back up, and that's what ultimately... Because what happens here is I still net out with 5 kills. I do end up losing, and we're going to highlight why I ended up losing in just a second. It's all those moments of when do you get in and when do you get out that make the biggest difference. And I do get scanned, but for some reason this team doesn't push me. And I think there was a team on the left or was a scan behind. Hard to tell, but nonetheless, there was so many teams here, so I guarantee they just forgot about me. And you're going to see here on the left here in a second, Loba tries to get out as well. I do a little damage on her just to make sure if she does cause me problems later that at least I know what her armor type was. And I decide to continue to rotate. I only have 1 syringe, so the struggle is definitely real here. But I know that I can reach with my Loba ult at least this compound, so I decided to go over here, drop down my Loba ult, because I know that I can reach a little bit more loot here, and I can probably catch out this Loba who's getting 3 stack landed on, which is very unfortunate. She looks like she's running into the same issue that I am, but she's not solo. Because I'm not landing my Sentinel shots, I decide to switch guns. So the question always happens, when do you decide to switch guns? Sometimes if a gun isn't working out for you, just get rid of it. Just trade it out and be very confident when you know that you're landing your shots versus not. And sometimes you're just going to have to stay in the encounter, stay in the fight, which I did there. Even though it was 1, you still dish out as much damage as if you were 1 versus not. So sometimes just staying in it makes a big difference. I accidentally attached the wrong attachment there, and I decide to stay in this encounter. And the reason why is because I'm getting the jump on a lot of people because they all keep rotating onto me. And while they're focusing me, I'm able to catch a lot of them out. I don't have a lot of flesh heals, but I'm hoping that the team on the left or the other teams will continue to put pressure. So a lot of mistakes you'll see, and I do this as well, and you're going to see it, where you just pull out wide swing and think that you have the advantage. I guarantee in comms they're screaming, that person's really low, you should push them. What's happening with the Horizon right now, because the other one got cracked, they decide, okay, well, I'm just going to have to stay back and heal, but then it creates an isolated fight for me. So that's a plus side for me. Let your teammates calm their one. It's why I mentioned if a teammate makes a mistake, just don't run in and make the same mistake as them. Happens a lot. Just stick to your guns and don't make a mistake. Because it's embarrassing. I feel like it's a reoccurring theme of what we're going to say in this video. But when you push in and you're playing pubs, you never know if that person's going to land their shots or not. And so constant ducking and weaving here. And even though I know he's rev ulted, I am confident that I can land the shots just because I put the pressure on him and he was wide swinging before. So I let that consistent pressure stay the same. If you notice that somebody just consistently wide swings you, it's predictable at that point. He didn't even peek another angle, which is unfortunate for him. And so I managed to finish him off. This is what causes me to get eliminated. I probably stayed a little too long in this encounter at this point. I did leave and back up, and I got a med kit, and I did heal up, though. So you see me heal up. We'll skip some of that action. Just the unfortunate part is that this other team was a little bit more coordinated, and I just whiffed a few extra shots. And because I whiffed a few extra shots, it costed me my game, unfortunately. And it's just one of those decisions that I honestly should have left here because this fight was already going for too long and it's already top 7. Honestly, at this point with top 7, you just need to run to zone and then play it out if you want to win. I was in this for a really long time, as you saw, and sometimes there's just people that get kills and sometimes you don't. So I shredded one, I cracked one, and they know where I'm at, but I'm trying to peek different angles, and I do a good amount of damage. And they're not necessarily pushing me, but there is a rampart that puts a mass amount of pressure, and because I gave them time to set up, there's no way for me to really win this. I probably should have queued the other side, since I can duck and weave over a little faster. But nonetheless, I should have just kept running. I should not have stayed in this engagement. What I was hoping here, my thought process, just so you know, is that the other people were making a mistake running out in the open. This Bloodhound, they do run out in the open and try to face me 1v1, but they land their shots, and they land more of them than me, and I lose. Let's go to the next clip. This is a pretty short clip, but I really wanted to highlight it, though, because I highlighted what can I do differently. Remember I mentioned how I was making any team makes a mistake of wide swinging out too much in the open. This would be a perfect example of it. Showcase in a minute. I'm playing smart positioning here now, but your positioning is so key. I actually have a really great loadout here, and I do jump down because there is 2 teams, and all 3 of them right now are going to shoot and try to focus me in a second. You even see they preemptively shoot me here, and I wait for them to fight so I can duck and weave and go right back in. My loadout is perfectly fine, so I'm just waiting for the nice opportunity to rotate back in. And once I see that they're fighting, which they will in just a second, I decide to go back into the fight. So this is kind of that duck and weave factor. If you're playing ranked, it's very, very important to kind of learn it. And there they go. They're fighting, and I decided to take the zip over on this angle. So I make a mistake. I could have honestly won this fight too. And it wasn't necessarily me landing more shots. I could have just minimized the damage done on me. So this guy, for some reason, is focused on me. It did 86 to him, which means that we're pretty much equal footing in terms of armor. I have white, they have purple, but I need to go in on it ASAP just to finish them off. Even if they're healing, there's the crack, and then I go for the finish here on them, and I decide to swap, and I got myself a purple, and I should have won this upcoming fight. I assume that this team is isolated here on the left, and that was part of their team. Go for the crack, go for the knock, so now at least I have a potential 1v1 or 3v2. This is my mistake right here. See how I'm way too out in the open? I needed to use cover, and unfortunately it caused me to get caught out. And if I use cover a little smarter, and I dropped too. I should not have dropped. Honestly, I need to hold my ground and hold the door up above. But I was thinking, okay, maybe one of them will drop, which they do. That was my thought process. But because they played so aggro, I should have won. I knew that they were going to drop. That's what I was hoping that they would do. But it really led to my downfall, because I spent a little too much time going for an armor swap on that when I should have just already been looking for them. So let's go to the next clip. This is where we're going to discuss when I finally won. So we'll start the footage here. I landed on the opposite side of the map there, and I decided to get into an engagement, get into the thick of it, because they were fighting pretty hard here. And this was literally right off the drop, but for some reason 4 teams already got eliminated. I'm listening to music in the background. I decided to turn it off a little later, which I'm probably going to do in a second. I like to listen to music sometimes, but sometimes it can help you vibe out, sometimes it doesn't. And I couldn't hear any more footsteps, so I decided to turn it off in just a second. So let's segue to that. So this is where I decided to turn off the music. I rotate, I leave, I tab out, because I needed a moment to tab out to just turn off the music. I didn't want to get absolutely shredded. And it also gave me the opportunity to get a little bit more loot, because those guys were so stationary. The horizon had left, and because they're not engaging, I just was like, okay, fine. I'm going to get out of this. I got 2 cracks, but I wasn't able to run in on any of them because the one I was running at just kept running, and I was like, fine, I'll let you go, whatever. So I decided to rotate back over here. You're going to see I caught a Valkyrie out of positioning. So once I knew that she was out of position, she was by herself. There was nobody else over here. So once I caught her by herself, I decided to engage on this and finish her off. I also go for the complete knock and cleanup. I don't hear any footsteps nearby, and even if there was, I'd go for an armor swap right now. And luckily, we're pretty much good to go. So I pretty much get what I need. Don't take your time window shopping. Know exactly what your loadout is going to be so you can get in. What's interesting is that, yes, I did win this round, but while I was in the thick of it here for a lot of it, you'll notice that there was 2 teams here. I get bamboozled quite a bit with the Mirages, which is crazy. So shout out to the Mirage, whoever that was. This was definitely a Master Lobbies, because the kill leader, by the way, in this lobby was the Masters, and some people happen to have pretty good trails whenever we're dropping. So I got bamboozled again, It was frustrating me. And they port back right on me, so I decided to queue away. And this is great for Loba to reposition. But at this point, I decided to stay in this fight. I could have lost, but I had to pretty much gamble. And I got my kill, unfortunately, stolen, because I was almost positive I was going to snag that. I get bamboozled again here, thinking it was an opponent, because people have been wide swinging me pretty much all day. I assumed it was another wide swing. This Horizon decides to run for some reason. She pretty much had the jump on me, but for some reason decided to run. When you're in engagement and you're full committed and you get the crack, don't turn your back on an opponent. So there's a whole nother squad there. Decide to kind of rotate. I assume they're going to get my kills. And when you're Loba, moving around with your Q is going to be very effective. So I think there's about 3 teams here. So I decided to slow it down just a little bit. I'm going to pop my ult, get a few more resources, because I need batteries. Batteries are very key to really holding your own and winning. So the more batteries you got, the better. I got 1 wipe, so that means that there's 1 squad remaining. I see a crypto ult go out. I Pepega some of my shots, and then I just decide to loot up whatever I can so I can get out of here and close my ultimate. I grab the additional armor, grab the bats, and then we're pretty much good to go. One of them is in the air. This is a full team of 3, and I know that me being behind a box, potentially going to get naded out, I need to have better positioning than that. And I do not know if the other team even still exists, which they do actually, believe it or not. So I did make the right choice. So this team is running away from the other team, and everyone's just shoving each other. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm not the sandwich. I do not want to become the sandwich, because when you become the sandwich, well, sandwiches can be yummy. They definitely are not good to be in the middle of, in terms of if you're getting third-partied on Apex Legends. So what I do is I wait here for a second. I'm trying to see if this guy is even still in the building, and I can't even hear or see them, but the other team is full sending. I have no visual on where the other guy went, but I don't want to run in and get shot immediately in the back. So I decided to queue forward at least to take the roof. So at least at height, I know that I have height advantage, and even if this person crawls up on me, I should be able to hear it. I destroy that poor little Wraith right there. She's rotating in. At this point, I'm just being an absolute nuisance. I'm trying to see who I can catch out. And I don't know if the guy's still underneath me, so that's why I'm playing a little cautiously here. Because I'm trying to see if the guy underneath me, if he's a solo, I can jump down on him and try to finish him. But right now, I'm just going to grief so I have better odds, and so I can just kind of wait for the moment. Once I realize the guy underneath isn't doing anything, right now I'm literally still waiting and listening as I'm shooting. Trying to see if this guy makes a play or goes anywhere. That's why I'm looking over to my right as well. But nobody ever appears, so I'm like, you know what? I look down below. This guy clearly either is ratting or not moving. I'm just going to go in and engage on this encounter. And so I managed to get a lot of solid damage on the Bangalore, but not enough to really crack her. I crack her, but I don't move up on that because I know that there's the guys over on the left that I also want to deal with. And so I play this a little slow because everyone's quiet. That's what freaked me out. Whenever it gets quiet, I don't know if they mopped up the team or if everyone's playing passive right now. You'll hear it. Everyone's just playing passive. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It scares me when everyone decides to play passive, because then if I move in and I make the first move, that means I'm going to be the center of attention. Luckily, I played this right, and I knew that that's what they were doing, and I decided just to grab whatever loot I can so I can rotate. And I do catch a Ashe who decided to run and out of rotation. This could have been the solo from earlier. I have no idea, to be honest, but they are fighting behind us still. So I go for this kill, a whiff, and they're going to finish their team, and I'm going to finish my squad here. So there's 8 squads, and they should finish. There it is, and there's 7. I know at that point, with me taking zone damage, it's like now that I have white armor, and I need to med kit up and be sure not to get caught out of position. The team was actually extremely fast. If you notice right here, they were so fast in terms of rotating that I'm glad I got out when I did, because all 3 of them were full sending me. The Wraith and the Crypto's got his drone out, which means he could have ulted me. And so what I do here is I cut behind the box to save myself some time, because technically the Wraith can see me. Close the door. There's a shot. I almost could have gotten hit there, and I guarantee they would have kept full sending even harder. So at this point, there they go. They're full sending. They're so confident. They've won so many fights there. They have great loot from the looks of it. Sometimes when the fight is over, it's over, and you're not going to necessarily win a 1v3, especially if somebody's geared. And I need a second to medkit. That's all I'm trying to wait for right now, is a second to medkit, so either I can turn and shoot or have somebody make a mistake. But now it's top 6, and what I decided to do, and we're going to skip through it, is that it's a lot of waiting. When you wait for the last teams, you know that all these teams are playing super safe, and you're going to see how safe they play. It's pretty crazy. Let's cut to that. Okay, so I literally just had to rat because no teams rotated ever on me, and I ran around, as you can tell, very, very far around the map. There's one team on the upper left-hand side, and there's one team on the right. So I decided just to wait, and you're going to see wait for zone, and they're not pushing each other, which means if I push the team up above, which I'm low ground, I'm going to lose. Even if I push the team within estates, the team up above is going to pick on me. So I literally have no choice but to kind of rat this out, because there's no way that any team right now, and they're literally all holding hands right on top of each other, that they're going to let me have this. And they're still not fighting. They're still not fighting. Still not fighting. Still not fighting. This is how I know that these teams are sweating for a dub. One of them is crafting, and believe it or not, they are still not fighting. I don't know what is going on or how this is happening. I almost thought about pushing it, but I know the minute I do it, that they're going to push me. So I continue to wait, and then I finally, they're finally forced to fight. And I guarantee maybe they're waiting for me as the third party, but it does give me the advantage here, because once they fight, that is my clear weighted dub. So I see them fighting over on the right there, and I did the wide rotation instead of going through estates just in case, because I was going to chill right here if they weren't going to fight. So I see some knocks, so that's 3 knocks, but it's not an instant wipe, which means that I know that I have full advantage. One goes for an armor swap up here, but there's the bubble, so I can't hang back. So I decided to full send this fight. Knock 1. I know that 4 are already knocked, so there should only be 2 people remaining, and I managed to get this knock, and the Gibby decides to put down his ult. I go for the armor swap, and I wait for him. And luckily I managed to go with a nice spray and I clean up. I hear the self-revive going on, but I gotta finish this as fast as possible. I already swapped off that. For some reason I forgot. Keep track of that. Biggest thing. I just decided to stay in this fight because I know I can win it, and there's a dub. Not the most exciting game. I mean, technically I got 7 because the Revenant was stolen from me earlier, and you saw that I stayed as much as I could within the encounter, but sometimes it just doesn't work out in your favor, especially when the lobby drops all the way down to 7, even though you were in the engagement as much as possible. Sometimes it works out in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. Hopefully this is helpful. This is Loba. Use your ultimate as a resource. Don't be afraid to put it down unless you're trying to play patiently. And that is pretty much everything in terms of Loba. Use your bracelet to get out. Don't use it to get in. Use it to reposition. Another big advice. I know we kind of talked about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the gameplay. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.